Hello, welcome to another episode of Versus Live. I'm Ross Merriam.
I'm Todd Anderson.
And we got Rob over here in the booth taking your questions, comments, concerns, and burns. So if you want to get your questions heard, make sure to tag at SEG Tour in the chat. Rob will select his favorites, ship them over to us. And how are you doing today, Rob?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
I'm doing all right.
I'm doing great.
Oh.
You know, sun is shining. It's a nice, warm, sort of, middle temperature day in Roanoke. We've got about a month and a half before things start getting just messy hot. It's miserable.
So what you're saying is you finally got air conditioning in your top level apartment.
Yeah, I got air conditioning last year.
Okay. All right.
And I feel weak because of it.
Or you feel conditioned by the air. Anyway, so today we are going to be playing a mishmash of different standard decks. What exactly what are we doing today?
So we're just testing standard. We're playing some IQs, MCQs this weekend. I'm sure a bunch of you out there are doing the same. We're in the time where standard is most in flux. We have that week one metagame set, and now everybody's trying to react to that, and the ball is rolling, so it's important to stay ahead of the metagame because things change, every week, almost every day in standard during this time. So we got a nice collection of matches here. We're starting with one that I really wanted to play based on what happened on Tuesday. So we did a gauntlet of the Bant Midrange deck that broke out last weekend in Richmond, and the deck was super impressive, and I wanted to see how it would match up against Esper Midrange because, in my head, my intuition was that the Esper Midrange deck would be really far behind. It can struggle with decks that get to the board really effectively. It really wants to play against decks that play on the stack. And the Bant deck is really good at playing to the battlefield. But we saw in the last match on Tuesday against Esper Control, Bant really struggled with Thief of Sanity. It's very removal light, doesn't have a lot of flyers to put in the way, so you clear away that one Shalai, that one Hydra Crisis, and the Thief generally goes unchecked, and that was a problem. And Esper Midrange with 4-man deck Thieves, maybe that can turn it around.
Yeah, no, I was thinking exactly the same thing. The mana advantage that the Bant deck can get from Llanowar Elves and either Incubation Druid or Paradise Druid, if they're on the play, I think that they can potentially get a little too far ahead where something like Thief of Sanity might not be nearly as effective. But at the same time, like a single unchecked Thief of Sanity, if you have a couple removal spells along the way to slow them down or a Thought Erasure to strip their big thing from them, I think you could very easily steal a game with Thief of Sanity.
Yep. So that's what we're going to be testing here. First, we're going to move on to some other matches later in the day that focus more on sort of fringe strategies that are around that might need some extra tuning to compete with the top level. We saw a lot of the top tier of standard on Tuesday, so we're going to focus a little bit more on the rest of what's going on to see where there's potential and where there really isn't. But for now, we're going to complete this matchup because I think it's going to be a really important one. We saw there was a standard premiere event on Magic Online where Esper Midrange did really well.
Yes. There's an MCQ last Sunday, I think, on Magic Online, and the Esper Midrange decks flooded the top 8 and the top 16. They didn't quite win the tournament. Yeah. That was won by a very interesting build of, is it Phoenix?
Interesting or old?
No, it had Finale of Promise and Saheeli Sublime Artificer.
Yeah, like 2 of each.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the deck radically shifted.
Dude,
three cards.
Finale of Promise is nice.
That is true. I'll give you that.
Nice.
And that deck could struggle with recurring Phoenixes over and over again. So having a single card that does it is great. So maybe that deck gets better just with the small edition. But Esper Midrange was clearly the best performing deck in that tournament, and it performed pretty well in Richmond. It, again, didn't crack the top, or it didn't crack the top 8 there. It did it online. So it's a deck that clearly has some legs. But I was so impressed by this Bant deck on Tuesday, and apparently so were you, since you've been playing with it for the last few days.
Yeah, so ever since you beat the heck out of me on Tuesday, I've been playing it on Magic Arena. I've actually come to my own build of the deck. I made some decent changes. I found Incubation Druid to be lackluster in a number of matchups, specifically any deck with the card Shock in it, but also just a lot of decks that have 2 mana removal like Moment of Craving or Cast Down, and Paradise Druid actually fills that role quite nicely. Yes, it has 1 toughness, so it does still get hit by Goblin Chain Whirler, but the games where they don't have Chain Whirler means that you're guaranteed to get that 1 mana boost, and sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, and sometimes like when you're playing it on the play, is your opponent just not going to attack with their creature that they play, their Gitu Lava Runner or whatever, because I would just make that trade to not lose my
this deck
creature
doesn't
routine
ramp
away.
into 4 very much, so like if you don't need that extra mana, you just block.
Yeah, and
happily.
That's a matchup where you're looking to just sort of stay with them up the curve rather than ramp past them.
Right.
But in the matchups like where there are trying to play 2 mana removal on your mana creatures, you really mess with their curve when you play to their open 2 mana. They don't get to use it while you got to use yours. Now, if they don't play a card on 3 mana, then you can hold up Frilled Mystic. If they do, then you can react to that. If they spend their 3rd turn trying to kill your Paradise Druid, then you've gotten your next creature down, and you just get ahead because of that early tempo. So I'm a fan of the Paradise Druid change. I've been underwhelmed with Incubation Druid in basically every deck I've tried it in.
Yeah, I think just it's not quite Sylvan Carroted. Obviously, being able to block and survive a 2-power creature was just so format warping for a mana accelerating creature back in the day,
and dodge 2 mana removal.
Yeah, and dodging most removal because that's hexproof. Yeah. And Paradise Druid is not quite that good, but it is still pretty good. I've had the power come up pretty regularly. It's just like trading off with 2 toughness creatures, just applying pressure to the opponent multiple times. Just a mana creature that has power is something worthwhile, especially when you're playing a Ketra.
Yep. When you're playing a Ketra to get value out of it late, and just pecking away at these planeswalkers that are minusing, you peck away at a Narset, you take away that second Azcanta activation that they get. You peck away at a Teferi and it dies, so they can't ramp back up towards a second bounce. A lot of value to having just a little bit of power out there stapled onto your mana acceleration.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give y'all basically a quick rundown of how this matchup's gonna play. Game 1. Ross is probably going to beat me with Thief Sanity. Fine. After game 1, we're going to go to sideboarding. I have Baffling End, Vivian Reed, and Crawl Harpooner out of the sideboard, all of which are pretty good at dealing with Thief Sanity, but also generically decent against the rest of his deck, aside from Crawl Harpooner. So it's going to be a rough game 1, but I think games 2 and 3 might have a shot. I'm going to be on the play. Let's go and get started, because you have the marbles.
That is true. I do have the marbles.
All right, so let's take a look at this opener.
For anyone curious about the Esper Midrange list that I'm playing, it's a list from my article earlier this week on StarCityGames.com, so you can check out the rationale behind it there. But this is updated after Richmond.
All right, my hand's pretty good. I'm going to keep it.
My hand is solid. It has a very clear hole, but we've got time to fill that hole.
Your turn. I keep telling myself that, but I just turned 33 and the time's running out. All right, let's play Paradise Druid and your turn.
Ooh. Can't kill that one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to shock myself to 18, and let's see what's up there.
All right, so Vivian is probably the take here for Ross, but we do have a really powerful hand with a God Eternal Ketra, a Krasis, and a Deputy Detention, so...
Yeah, I have no good way to answer this Vivian, so that's definitely the take here.
Yeah, and Vivian on the play with no creature from the opponent is...
Leave your hand up.
Very good. You say that, but I don't have to do what you tell me to do.
We playing a Krasis here?
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of spin. I don't want to do nothing, and I want to get something down in case he has a Teferi, so your turn.
So you're at 21?
Yes. I played the Forest, so you know that I saw a Breeding Pool. Next turn, I'll just play a Catcher, probably.
Okay. There are a couple options. I could just cast this, and that's... Yeah, I actually like that, because I think it's my best way to just actually answer this Oketra. I guess my other option is to... No, killing the Krasis into Teferi is not nearly as good. So let's just Thought Erasure again. Take the Oketra. And I definitely want another land, so we'll leave that on top.
All right, draw for turn, and that was a great draw. We'll go ahead and get this down. We'll go ahead and take up to 5 so we can float a bounce.
Okay.
For 4.
I was worried you were casting a Vivian, which would have been better. Teferi is still quite good.
Yeah.
So...
Now, Vivian would have been excellent, just gaining me that extra card immediately with a little bit of selection and allowing me to play at instant speed. But Teferi making Ross play at sorcery speed is also pretty good. The problem is it doesn't really stop things like Deputy. I could have just not cast it. I thought about that. But mana efficiency, etc.
Yeah, we're in a tough spot here. Anything I play that is generically good can just get bounced by the Teferi and undone, which is not great. I'll just take another 4 damage. I'll be in the same spot, especially with that deputy there as a follow-up. We're just so far behind. Think I just need to buy time, and the best way to do that is with my own Teferi here, and I'll just bounce the Paradise Druid, get my card, and then Todd will probably just attack it.
Okay. Attack Teferi, spin up, and say go.
Drew a Frilled Mystic?
Sorry. Shot, yeah. 19.
Ugh. Okay, well that is probably the best card I could have drawn against a Frilled Mystic, because it lets me double spell this turn. Let's play a hero.
Yeah, we're going to just play a tempo game here. Go ahead and get that. Since it blocks my ground creatures pretty well.
So I know your hand is just Deputy and Druid.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to be a little bit worried about my life total. I'm going to mortify the Frilled Mystic.
It's probably smart, because if you don't, I'm just going to bounce it
Yep.
and lock you out for another turn.
I wasn't actually thinking about that, and then I realized it right at the end.
Yeah.
That made that play obvious, so I should.
All right. I'm going to attack you for 2, put you to 14.
At 12, right?
12? Did you shock miss the shock?
Yeah, I shocked on turn 2.
Okay, sorry. So I kind of want to just minus the Teferi to draw a card, because there's a chance it gets hit with like a Vraska's Contempt or Deputy of Detention or something like that. I can also just I think I'm just going to minus on the Krasis, draw a card, try to hit a land, and then Krasis for 4. Okay. Instead of that, we'll play Shalai and an Elf. Shalai is quite good here. Protects us from a lot of stuff.
I would have been pretty happy if you just played Shalai, but the Elf is really awkward.
How so? Because it allows me to Shalai activate or something? Oh, because you could just Teferi bounce and I still have a thing to attack the Teferi. Gotcha.
Yeah. Now this card looks really awkward. But I think it might be our best plan. Yeah, I think I just have to try to manage the board. I'm going to... actually... No, I think I do it a different way. Let's start with Discovery. And I don't want either of those. Thief and Land. And then I will play Thief of Sanity. Okay. Pass the turn.
Untap, draw. I'm going to tick up the Teferi. I'm going to play Paradise Druid and Deputy this.
Yep.
Attack you for 4.
I go to 8.
And play my land. Say go. Not really afraid of a Wrath out of this deck. Some versions, I'm not even sure if Ross is playing it, play Liliana Dreadhorde General. So we want to get enough creatures on the battlefield where we don't lose to the minus, keep our Deputy and our Shalai alive.
Play a big Teferi and tuck the Shalai.
Alright, and it's 2 down.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Pass the
Same
turn.
as the Oketras. Third from the top. Okay, just making sure. Alright, draw for turn. Land. Let's go. Crisis for 6. So draw 3. Gain
22.
3. 1 at Fairy and 2 at you.
I'm at 6.
Tick up to Fairy. Your turn.
Yeah. That was pretty good as far as draws there go, but this is still a really tough game to win. Thought Erasure, you make a token. Take the Frilled Mystic. Destroy the Hydroid Crisis, get a token.
Mm-hmm.
And pass the turn. Just fell behind early, never really had a spot where I could get my thief down. So I thought I was going to have one turn of inaction from Todd, and he drew something really good to play that turn in the Teferi. And from there, this game was virtually unwinnable.
Shock to 17, or sorry,
20.
20.
Yeah.
Bounce the thing, attack with this. Sorry, draw a card.
Yeah. No blocks.
All right, I will pump. Everything gets
counters on everything, and I go to 4. Need to draw an answer to this. Shall I, or we're dead. And I do another hero.
All right. Anything pressing from Twitch Chat, Rob, or should we go ahead and move to sideboards?
We had a couple questions.
Hit me.
So Nernroot Conspiracy wants to know, Ross, what did you think about BBD's more removal-heavy build, or different removal, sorry, in not playing Deputy Detention in the main deck and instead playing more removal?
I don't know if he necessarily was playing more removal. He had more lands and more planeswalkers. Like, Deputy to me sort of counts as removal, so he's just deciding which kinds of removal he wants. I think he expected fewer wide aggressive decks than I did, and fewer mid-range decks, and he was probably right about that. But Deputy also being pretty good in game 1 against Simic Nexus makes me like the card. What I liked about BBD's list is that he went bigger. Because I think Big Teferi is very good, and he, his incorporation of that card in the deck, I think paid dividends, especially in mid-range matchups.
Was he light on Enter the God Eternals?
He had 2. So he had 26 lands, 2 Enter, 3 Big Teferi, 2 Liliana, which we both agreed was probably at least one too many. This list I have is sort of in between what I played in Richmond and what he played in Richmond. I have 2 Big Teferi, 2 Enter, 1 Liliana, so I have 5 big cards. He had 7. At the tournament, I had 4.
This is all minutia.
Yeah,
a lot.
But it's that size, that increase in sizing is what I liked out of him. I've been pretty happy with Deputy.
Yeah, you need to find the bridge. I think Deputy is insanely good against white because it just completely checks History of Benalia. And again, a lot of matchups, it just buys you time. I use it a lot in this deck, like an Exclusion Mage or like a Mana War type effect where you basically just buy some time. Hitting a creature that gets +1/+1 counters like Runaway Steamkin or even Wild Growth Walker, you like shrink those back down to a manageable size, which I really like.
Yeah, Hydroid Crisis, then it doesn't come back. Like there's a lot of good things that it does,
Yeah, and it even has value against like the Wilderness Reclamation decks because you can hit their Search for Escanta or their Wilderness Reclamation when they're not comboing you yet, and they just don't really have a great way to get it back other than a bounce spell.
Yeah, so I am a fan of Deputy, but I like what BBD did in his list going bigger. That's what I'll say.
All right, 1 or 2 more, and then we'll go sideboard.
Yeah. Do you think what do you think about the feather decks? Do you think the Naya feather deck that made day 2 is something that might be playable?
Are we playing it today?
We are not playing that today. Yeah, okay. That one hit the chopping block. Yeah. I am. Those decks can do some powerful things when they get going, but in my experience, they've been too easy to break up, and the powerful things that they do don't actually end the game. I've played matches against that deck where they had Feather out for 2 turns, they drew some extra cards, but then I just killed their Feather, and with the extra cards they drew just weren't powerful enough to matter.
I think Reckless Rage is the key. I think that if you have Reckless Rage plus Feather, that allows you to kill 1 creature every turn iteration, like your opponent's and your own. And that allows you to just completely dominate the battlefield. But if you don't have that, your deck is just a handful of protection and pump spells. And that's not the way you actually can win the game with Feather. That's just a way where you can gain some value. And a lot of decks in Standard are really good at gaining value. And if they're ever able to bounce or kill or basically just invalidate Feather at any point over like a 2-turn stretch, like they're probably fine.
Yeah, and the rest of what you're doing is pretty aggressive, but not as aggressive as mono red or mono white.
Yeah.
And you can get raced, so it sits in this awkward space where it's a little bit too slow as an aggressive deck and not powerful enough as this value synergy deck.
Mm-hmm.
It is it's half of each, but ends up being worse than either. Not to say that there's not potential there. It's still week 1, week 2. If somebody can find the right build of it, there are definitely powerful things. Feather is a very powerful card. So I'm not sure what the deck is missing because I haven't played enough with it or against it. But right now, that I think there's clearly something missing from it.
Sure. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break here while we prepare sideboards here for Game 2 of this match between Bant Midrange and Esper Hero.
And welcome back here to sideboarding with Esper Midrange against Bant Midrange. On my side, this is pretty typical of what I do against opposing midrange decks, especially the ones that are creature heavy. And Hero of Precinct 1, like making a pile of 1/1s, usually just gets trumped on the battlefield and ends up being, just not very relevant. Sometimes you can get really far ahead with it if you have it early, but it's a pretty weak draw later in the game, and I'm really just trying to gear up for that long game and make sure I can go toe-to-toe with them. And then the main deck copy of Dovin's Veto, not great against a deck with so many creatures. And the one copy of Sorin, the Bant deck's removal is essentially all exile-based. Sometimes they can -3 Vivian, so you're not really going to build a graveyard of good creatures you want to return, and then the lifelink is not super relevant. The one place where I actually do think it's pretty good is just being able to pressure planeswalkers through a stalled battlefield with the +2 ability, but I don't think that's worth actually having it in the deck. And we're just bringing in a lot of heavy hitter kind of cards. Our Time Wipe to reset the board. Enter the God Eternals is a solid 2-for-1. The Elders Reborn is a powerful card. And then Disdainful Stroke and D-Spark can help us, deal with some of the really powerful threats out of Todd's deck. Disdainful Stroke particularly good at countering God Eternal, etc. Then I'm bringing in one Moment of Craving to answer mana creatures. I would certainly bring in the second one if Todd was playing a list with Incubation Druid, because then you can tag both mana creatures as well as Foiled Mystic or Growth Chamber Guardian if they leave it in. As we see, Todd is bringing Growth Chamber Guardian out, and we saw Paradise Druid in Game 1, so Moment of Craving isn't as good. So I'm only bringing in the one copy because I really only have 6 cards I actively want to bring out. The second Moment of Craving would probably just sort of upgrade a Mortify maybe. This is typically how I approach these matchups. Hero, not very good against green mid-range decks. And we're going to try to win a bit of a longer game.
All right, from my side, Growth Chamber Guardian is not really the type of plan you want in this matchup. We're basically trying to match Ross at all stages. Early on, we need to make sure we can answer Thief of Sanity. And then as the game goes late, we need big haymakers. And while Growth Chamber Guardian is decent early and decent late, he really shines against control, and I think he's really my go-to sideboard out card. Like, after sideboard, when people's decks get a lot more streamlined, Growth Chamber Guardian just generally gets a bit worse because it's not really an efficient use of mana. And when in a matchup where you're not really needing to apply that much pressure to the life total, Growth Chamber just gets significantly worse.
It's your analog for Hero, right? It's this 2-mana creature that is cheap and lets you, create this early battlefield against aggressive decks. Like, it's good late while still being good early, while still giving the ability to accrue advantage late, which is what you need against aggressive decks and control decks, but the advantage that it gains is somewhat marginal in mid-range matchups.
Yeah. We're cutting Deputy just because against a slew of removal, it's very unlikely Deputy ever checks anything for long. And this is not a matchup where Ross has things that Deputy can permanently deal with. Like, he doesn't have Hydroid Crisis. He doesn't have... he has some amount of token generators, but we don't care about the 1/1s that much. We can check those pretty easily by just flooding the battlefield. And then because I'm siding out 7 other creatures, I think trimming 1 God Eternal Oketra is fine. Drawing the 2nd or 3rd God Eternal Oketra often means it's just a dead card, and the games are going to go long enough where I should be able to find one of the 2 left in the deck. And in this matchup, Ross is pretty well suited to go over the top of God Eternal Oketra by just flying over it, or hitting me with a Time Wipe, or bouncing it with Teferi and then hitting me with a discard spell. Like it doesn't really dominate like it does in some matchups in this one in particular. So we're just going to be trimming one of those. And then we're just bringing in 8 ways where we can effectively deal with Thief of Sanity. But Vivian Reed also is just a phenomenal card when we're grinding back and forth. Just gaining a card every turn, forcing him to have a removal spell for a Planeswalker or apply enough pressure to the battlefield where he can potentially just like have to run all of his creatures headfirst into a sizable defense from me is pretty nice.
Yeah, just typical card that's very good in mid-range mirrors and control decks. It's also an extra 5-drop, so boarding out Noketra when you have 3 Vivians makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Baffling End can also check Deputy of Detention.
Yep. And Hero if you leave it in. So.
Yeah. And zombie tokens from Enter the God Trance.
Yep. All right. Any more questions, Mr. Robbo?
Yeah, Todd, why are you playing Negate over Dovin's Veto?
The original list had Dovin's Veto, but literally in the second match that I played with the deck, I had a spot where one of my blue sources was a Glacial Fortress, and I couldn't Dovin's Veto and play another spell in the same turn because of it. And I just thought the odds of, like, when you're playing Dovin's Veto, it's really good in a control deck because if your opponent plays like a Planeswalker and you cast Dovin's Veto, they can't Dovin's Veto or negate back in response to stick that Planeswalker because of Dovin's Veto being unable to be countered. But in a deck like this, you're using negates or Dovin's Veto defensively. Like if your opponent plays a counter spell on your thing, you want to counter back. Or if they tap out for some big thing, you want to counter it. And in all those scenarios, negate is going to be functionally the same as Dovin's Veto almost every single time. And it's just slightly easier to cast. With 3 forests, 4 Llanowar Elves, there's just going to be occasions where Dovin's Veto is just not going to be good for the mana while being able to play another spell. And Negate just allows you to play another spell on top of it in the same turn a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a deck that wants to or frequently does get into counter wars. I mean, we saw Zach Allen's sideboard plan in the matchup involved boarding down to 1 copy of Absorb.
Mm-hmm.
So how often are you going to counter their spell and have them counter back very infrequently, especially after sideboarding? So if that's the case and that clause on Dovin's Veto is not particularly relevant, but the mana certainly is because you're a base green deck.
Yeah.
So I think that is an astute observation.
All right, any more questions?
Yeah, Tyler Joe Bryan wants to know, what about Big Teferi in Bant Midrange? Is that just too expensive, maybe?
I don't know. It could be good. You don't really have a ton of stuff to do at instant speed unless you have a Vivian down. I mean, ramping into a Big Teferi, though, seems not so bad. Cool
with Frilled Mystic to let you untap the mana to cast that. You've got a bunch of 2-mana counter spells on the sideboard. Could be better than the 3rd Vivian.
Yeah, 1 Teferi over 3rd Vivian in the sideboard. I actually found myself not really wanting the 3rd Vivian just now when I was sideboarding, so I could definitely see that just like taking a slot in the sideboard at the very least. And in the main deck, though, you just have to be really creature dense. We already have 8 Planeswalkers with the Vivians and the baby Teferis, and I just don't think you can really afford to play 1 fewer creature.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, but I think it makes a lot of sense in the sideboard over the 3rd Vivian. Just diversify your threats. It plays ball with your deck, especially a lot of the matchups where you're bringing in Teferi, you're going to be bringing in some of those 2-mana counter spells.
Mm-hmm. How's your hand?
My hand is excellent.
I'm thinking about mulliganing. This hand is really bad if Ross hits a turn 2 Thought Erasure, and pretty good otherwise. So it's a little tough. I don't know. I will mulligan so we can take another question. How about that?
Also, I told you my hand is excellent. And I boarded out Hero, so sure. I don't think we have excellent hands that don't start on turn 2 Thought Erasure.
Sure. I mean, my hand was still 5 lands, so I could just draw a bunch of spells and be fine. But, I mean, mulliganing against a Thought Erasure is also just not great. But
yeah. Could also draw a bunch of lands and then have nothing.
Yeah, but I could also do the same thing with a 6-card hand.
Ross, have you thought about more Narsets, or is that something you're good up with a one-off?
Narset, I haven't had a chance to try too much, but it seems very good in the control matchups and against Nexus, but it's not a card that you can play too many of. It has a pretty prohibitive mana cost for a 3-color deck at 1 blue. So I don't even think you're going to be able to cast it on turn 2 that often with 16 blue sources. Maybe there are 17 blue sources now because I added a land. So I don't think you can play too many, mostly because of that. And really in those matchups, you want to diversify. You definitely don't want Narset in the main. It's pretty good in the matchups where you're getting more controlling and gearing up for a longer game, and you just can't play too many of them.
All right. Captain, I bottomed.
Okay. Godless Shrine.
All right. Elf, go.
Oh no. Thought ratio. No white mana. Okay.
Yeah, I actually bottomed a white mana because I just had 3 lands already.
Yeah. My concern with this hand where he's ramping is like turn 3 Oketra burying me, but he has no white mana,
That's
so
true.
that's not
But there's
gonna
a Vivian right here, and that's going to bury you, so don't you fret.
Yeah, Vivian would be a problem. Yeah, I'll top that.
All right, Elf, Breeding Pool,
Yeah.
attack for 1.
I'm at 19. Go. I'm gonna go to 17 and play a thief with
Yeah,
watery grave.
unfortunately for you, I drew the other Vivian, which is perfect on this board. Let's shock, play Vivian, blast it. Your turn. I'm at 18.
Oh, that's why I kept
You're
the
at
second
17?
thief.
Sure.
You can go.
But now I'm going to hit a Crawl Harpooner. So, you know.
When you said Vivian, that's the one that I was thinking.
Oh, I was thinking
because I was playing thief on turn 3.
4. Man, I messed up. Can I play my other land last turn? I actually, as I was playing it, I didn't want to hide information, and then I was just like, well, that's stupid.
You just found an Oketra and now
Yeah.
can't cast it. Well,
I have 2 white lands. I'll prove it to you. And I 100% had one last turn.
yeah, you've only drawn 1 card.
All right, I'm at 16.
Well, you played the yeah. So
So you know I have a Breeding Pool, and then I'm just going to play another one, and then play a catcher. And say go.
land, please.
Just me being dumb.
Okay, we hit the land. That's good.
Tilt. Still going to lose because Thief Sanity is busted.
Well,
You probably know. Yeah, you know both these.
I don't know about that because. So we'll Teferi bounce the Oketra, and then I'll shock myself and thought erasure it. So I'm at 15. We'll surveil this land into the graveyard, and now I'm priced into attacking the Vivian because otherwise this can just trade. I guess I would generally be okay with that, but then you're like if you plus and find any way to answer this, like this Vivian's going to run away with the game.
Yeah.
So let's hope that this next hit is not good.
Well, my draw stats haven't been good. That makes you feel better.
Well, the Vivian part of them were certainly good.
I want a Teferi.
Yep.
Breeding Pool tapped. Your turn.
Okay, so we're going to get to deal with Vivian, and then our Thief is online, and that's good. That was another good draw. Teferi bounce the Oketra. Pass the turn.
Can I draw a creature? I've drawn a land almost every single draw step aside from this one. I have 3 more lands in my hand. It's unbelievable. Send both at Teferi just in case. Replay this.
Stroke it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Disable stroke.
Okay, and now we are very far ahead. Thief connects. You're at 14. I'm at 15. And that one seems good. I will go to 13.
I'm glad you like the top of my deck.
Play
I
a
sure as
4/4
hell don't.
Crisis.
Sure.
Go back up to 15 because I shocked. So I'm at the same life total. Draw 2. Pass the turn.
Okay, you won. I quit. What the heck? Started with like 3 land elf. No, 4 land elf Frilled Mystic. And I drew Vivian elf lands. That was unfortunate. Vivian was quite good. I thought I was going to win that game pretty easily. And
So did I.
just needed to hit a way to deal with the Thief of Sanity and didn't. Fortunately, Vivian only gets creatures and land, so kept putting like Teferis on the bottom, and it's like, oh man.
You could have also just found like Hydroid Crisis. That
Yeah.
would have been tough for me to deal with Shalai.
Yeah,
Well.
I just kept finding Ketros and not having a way to put another creature on the battlefield, which was unfortunate, but you know, it happens. And a deck that plays so many, I mean, we have 24 lands and 8 mana creatures. Like, you know, we're gonna flood sometimes for sure. God, I hate Thief Sanity so much. I just hate how it just warps the entire game around it. I hate it so much.
Yeah. It is a kind of obscenely powerful card.
It just creates a sub game, and if you don't win the sub game, you lose the overall game. Like I've only won maybe 5 games in my entire life I think the person who's connected with Thief of Sanity has won all but like 5 games that I've ever seen.
I've won a game where my opponent connected with Thief like 5 or 6 times with mono blue. Not really sure how, but I just kept countering
They
stuff.
were probably bottlenecked on mana.
Oh, the game went pretty long. I think this is a keep. It's a fine hand, yeah.
Don't worry. My elf draws are never as good as yours unless I draw a land right now. Woo! We did it. 18. See, all you gotta do is complain and then you get super lucky.
That is how Magic works. It's kind of obscene.
Right. These on bottom. Your turn.
So Todd told me 2 things while we were getting set up before we went live. One was that he never has Llanowar Elves, and 2 was that if you have Llanowar Elves into Vivian on the play, the game is over.
Yeah.
They seem contradictory that he would somehow figure them both out if he never has Llanowar Elves.
No, against you. Online, I have it quite a bit.
Well, you've had Llanowar Elves turn 1. What was it? All twice? Just like each of the last 2. You didn't have it in game. Yeah, you had Paradise Druid in game 1.
On 2.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a 2-drop, which is a bit of a problem with the post-board configuration.
Ooh.
Might mean I should bring in the Moment of Craving just to deal with Llanowar Elves on turn 2.
All right, Vigilance attack for 1. So 19 to 18. And I will shock down to 16 and say go.
You know you don't have 2 blue mana, right?
I know.
I guess, yeah, you just get to cast everything to instant speed, so it doesn't matter.
That's true.
That's
that's how Vivian works.
Okay, well, I'll play a Thief of Sanity.
All right, I'll Harpoon it and play Paradise Druid.
That's messed up.
Draw for turn. I'll tick down on Vivian. This. Shock.
You're at 14.
Attack for... No. Go.
So you're at 14, I'm at 19 still?
Yeah.
Play this Water Grave and pass the turn.
All right, I will play 4/4 Hydroid Crisis.
You go to 16.
Yeah, draw 2.
Yep. I will Mortify the Crisis.
The dead. Tap, draw. I will tick up on the Paradise Druid, attack for...
That's a neat
2.
interaction.
Yeah.
17.
Play my land and say go.
This is also kind of a messed up play pattern.
Yeah, you cannot possibly win. Like, turn 2 Vivian on the play, if your opponent just can't apply pressure to it or kill it, it's disgusting.
3 cards in hand.
I have 3 cards in hand.
2 in exile.
Yeah.
I assume a bunch of stuff is coming down. Maybe just another Crisis, 7 mana. Very easily have Frilled Mystic. I'm trying to figure out a, realistic pathway to me winning the game. Like envisioning that and then play towards what you envision. And I'm having trouble envisioning that.
Envisioning any? I mean, I guess it starts with me having 2 lands under here and 3 lands in hand?
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think if that's the case, I would be ahead in this game.
I don't. I think you would still win.
If you have 5 lands, I have a Teferi. I would just play Teferi and start drawing 1 million cards.
We'll attack it.
You only have 3 power.
Yeah, I'm just going to minus to find a Crisis and whatever,
Yeah, but I get to untap with it and play and start doing stuff.
Sure. Let's see how that works out.
This probably involves me just slamming Haymakers and drawing a bunch of good cards, so I'll just slam the Teferi.
That will resolve.
Okay, well, that's good. I'll plus it.
Okay.
That's not great. I'll go to my end step.
All right, I'm going to Ketra and Llanowar Elf and make a 4/4.
Well, those weren't lands, so you lied to me.
I didn't lie to you. I said that was how you won. My go?
Yes.
Nice. No removal spell?
Nope.
All right, drop turn. Let's go tick up Vivian on this Llanowar Elf, and we'll go 5. This is Vigilance at Teferi. 6, 7, 8, 9 at you.
I'm at 8.
And here we go.
Thought erasure you.
So 3 mana. I don't think he has Kai's Wrath, so I'm just going to Shalai to try to counter that, I guess. Make another 4/4. Face cam! Woo, woo,
I mean, I mortify for the Shalai, but I needed to deputy the 4/4s from whatever creature you played here to survive.
Oh no!
And I can't do both now, so I am dead.
Yeah, I also had a Frodo.
Yes.
So you know. My first Vivian was a land and 2 Planeswalkers, and I thought, this is how it ends. This is how I lose today. This is how we lose the marbles. All right. Well, match 1's in the books for me.
You can't lose what you never had, Todd.
You're right. I have never physically owned the marbles. They have been in my possession a few times, but they are yours by right, and I shall concede that point. However, today,
that was
coming home.
That was about how I expected a match like this to go. You saw just how this Esper deck is pretty weak to Llanowar Elves specifically, and the games where you had Llanowar Elves, you just got so far ahead.
Well, being on the play, I'll say this. Elf into Vivian on the play is one of the most degenerate things I have done in the standard format. Like, I've done some really kooky stuff with Wilderness Reclamation and Growth Spirals and all sorts of other neato things, but like Vivian on the play just completely changes your entire play dynamic. Your opponent just no longer knows how to play against your creatures, let alone having to try to beat counterspells after sideboard or beating a Frilled Mystic. And if you combine Vivian ever with a Teferi, your opponent is stuck playing a different game. They're playing at sorcery speed all the time, and you're playing at instant speed all the time. And it's just it's such a good 1-2 punch that it's amazing to me that no one really saw that until Harlan Fair put it on the map last weekend. Like we tried Vivian a couple times, but we never paired Vivian in the same deck as Teferi.
Yeah.
And together, they're just so insanely good.
I'm completely agree. When you have a deck that is playing Thief of Sanity like Esper Midrange in a creature deck, you're able to more freely board removal for it. Mm-hmm. We didn't see that against Esper Control, and so Thief was better able to run away with the game. And those control decks have more answers to Planeswalkers and things like that because they're not playing as many creatures, so they're better set up to just fight Vivian and Teferi directly, which is a lot easier to do than fighting them in combat against a green midrange deck that is generally going to dominate combat. So those deficiencies were huge. I was able to sort of take game 2 when your Llanowar Elf draw flooded. Like, you got ahead of me because of the Vivian, and then Thief of Sanity took over the game once you didn't have any action with it. But if you had found action, I think you would have quickly run away with the game with the Vivian if you just dealt with the Thief. So like one Crisis hit, and that game turns around really quickly. But games, even game 1, when you were on the play, both games you were on the play, you just pulled ahead so quickly. I tried to break open holes in your curve with Thought Erasure, but the deck is so redundant, I wasn't really able to do it.
Yeah.
And the Esper deck has a similar curve, but it doesn't have the mana acceleration, so you get to that double spell point of the game so much faster. And the early one way I could get an advantage is by killing your mana creatures, and I can't really do that effectively. I have a few things in Kill Llanowar Elves I probably should have brought in the second moment, because I now realize that that's an important part of the game. But Paradise Druid, you just can't kill on turn 2, so unlike Incubation Druid. So that's a good innovation to stop my best recourse in the early game. Or I can try to get ahead with aggression and build a board. But the way I do that in Esper Midrange is with Hero of Precinct 1, and that card isn't good against a bunch of bigger creatures. You used to board it out against Sultai Midrange. I know why it did, and I think for similar reasons you have to board it out in this matchup. So I don't really have recourse to punish you for spending your early turns ramping. I just have to hope to beat you 1-for-1 and trading. Maybe that requires me boarding more answers for Planeswalkers. Right now I have a couple D-Sparks, but no Contempts.
The problem with D-Spark, it doesn't kill these really powerful 3-mana Planeswalkers. Like, it doesn't kill Vivian or Teferi Time.
Or Narset in other matchups, but it is really good against a lot of other stuff. it can answer Oketra and other gods for a while.
Absolutely.
Exiles Hostage Taker, deals really, really well with Rekindling Phoenix.
I've been a lot more impressed with D-Spark than I thought. It even answers Arclight Phoenix, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah. So there's some it's a tough road to hoe here, trying to figure out exactly how to configure the deck to combat this matchup without sacrificing in other matchups. And I'm not sure if it's worth it. I think if you're going to play Esper Midrange, you probably just have to bite the bullet and say that your Bant matchup is bad, because you're going to be good against most other things. I think you're quite good against red. You're quite good against Nexus.
One of the things we said when we were playing the Esper Hero deck on Versus Live a couple weeks ago, when we were tuning it for Richmond, you specifically said at one point that Esper Hero is likely a significant underdog against other mid-range matchups, but against control, you had a lot of really powerful tools to interact, and against aggro, you had a lot of ways to really punish them for being so low to the ground. And I think that is just going to ring true throughout, because you're a mid-range deck that's built to beat control and aggro, as opposed to a mid-range deck that's built to beat other mid-range decks in aggro.
Yeah.
Whereas this deck is... Well, this deck actually just feels like it's just hits on all three fronts, which is one thing that I really like.
Yeah. It's supposed to be bad against red.
So that's what I heard, right? And then the first two matches I played with the deck on Magic Arena were both against mono red, and I won. And I was like, this isn't supposed to happen. And it was close. Like, the games were close, but they weren't. I was never like at 1 fading a burn spell for 4 turns. I was always at like 7. And if he had a string of spells like Light Up the Stage into Goblin Chain Whirler Shock, I was like decimated or whatever, right? But like the trick, I think, is just always making sure you understand your positioning in the game. And like, if you make sure that you're always playing defensively at any point that you can. I think that you should be fine. Especially with Paradise Druid on the draw, like, you can hold up a Frilled Mystic on turn 3, which is nice, and that stops like Chandra Fire Artisan. The body gets to counterspell plus do a thing. You need to use your planeswalkers like very aggressively to dig for things and just force them to interact with your planeswalkers, because if they don't, they're going to get punished. But if they do, that's also like gaining you life while drawing a card or bouncing something,
buying you time to set up your more powerful cards.
And time is all you need. And when you start landing things like Shalai in game 1 before they have Lava Coil, that's really good. Or if you land in a Ketra before they really get set up on the board, if you go Elf into Paradise Druid and they just don't shock it, they're just busy playing the creatures or whatever, like, if you play a turn 3 Ketra, the game's over. And if you play a turn 4 Ketra while interacting with your opponent along the way, that's also still game over. Like, you just naturally have these things in your deck that generate like value or time, and that's all you really need against red.
Yep. So my experience, while minimal, has been the red matchup isn't as bad as people say it is. I think there are definitely games where you get run over on the draw, but a lot of that. Getting run over involved them just shocking your turn to Incubation Druid. Right. And I think the addition of Paradise Druid, even though it makes you more vulnerable to Chain Whirler, probably makes you better overall against them. Mm-hmm. So that could be, that's a subtle change, and it's not one that you would think makes you better against mono red because it's so obviously weak to Chain Whirler.
Yeah.
But I think it does. And that's the kind of small change that you can make to, just shift a couple percentage points in your favor in a matchup, in one of your weaker matchups, without hurting your other matchups at all. And in fact, probably making your like Esper matchup better. That really helps, take the deck to the next level and go from, its first variant that's 80% of the way there to 90%, 100% of the way there.
Yeah, I mean, so just before we move on to the next match, we're going to take some questions, but I just want to say this. I am almost 100% to play Bant Midrange this weekend, and this is the list that I'm at right now with 2 days to go. I'm going to play later today when I get home, and I'm going to play tomorrow, and then my list is going to be set. I'm going to tweet it on Friday night, so if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's strong_sad, you're going to see my list before we play on Saturday, and I'm just going to play probably Magic Online or MCQ, if I had to guess. So, all right. Any questions from chat before we move on?
Yes. They had a few questions about, like, we saw a much more diverse classic top 8, and they were wondering if you thought that the Grixis decks that top 8 actually got first and third with the Flip Nicol Bolas, the Ravager, if those decks had legs, and what you thought about just the Grixis deck in general.
I mean, I'll start, but I'm sure we have similar takes. I mean, all the cards in the Grixis deck are good. Like, I've played against it quite a few times. Nicol Bolas, the Dragon God, is really good, and if you can protect it, it's insanely good. And that's been a deck that I've lost to quite a few times on Magic Arena over the last 3 or 4 days with all sorts of different decks. So yeah, I mean, I think the deck is certainly good. I was surprised that there weren't more in the Open doing well in day 2. But at the same time, like, it's just one tournament, and the Classic is just another tournament. And Classics, the winners of a Classic have to have a better record almost than the winner of an Open, because in an Open it's 15 rounds of Swiss. You get to take like 2-3 losses in the Swiss and still make top 8. Like, yeah, you're going to end up going like 15-3 or whatever, if a lot of times if you win the tournament or somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But to win a Classic, you almost always have to go like 11-1 or 10-1. And that is just a significantly better win percentage. So I would say this, that that deck winning the Classic is a big deal.
Well, I believe the Standard Classic last weekend was 8 rounds. I think both Standard and Modern were about 140-ish people, so which is a smallish 8. So you figure you go 7-1, you go 10-1 versus 15-3, which is a better win rate against a weaker.
It's close. I mean, yeah, I'm saying
better win rate against a weaker field. To me, it's somewhat comparable. For the Grixis deck, I just think Grixis has holes that Esper and Bant don't. There's things. Grixis has a really hard time dealing with opposing enchantments. It doesn't have
kills them.
It doesn't really have the same way of pressuring. Nicol Bolas destroys creatures or planeswalkers, right?
I'm thinking of Ugin.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They could play. I mean, I guess they could play Ugin, but
I've seen a couple play Ugin.
Yeah. But that's still, a 1 or 2-0, so they're going to have a tough time dealing with them. I think the Grixis decks have a tough time pressuring other planeswalkers. Like, you just have to have the Bedevil or the Contempt or whatever answer you have. They're sort of control decks that are more tap-out style control decks. Those decks are often called mid-range, but they're pretty controlling, and they like to play a very long game. And those decks are going to be, I think, weak to Esper control because, they just don't have absorbs. And I think they're going to be weak to the really low to the ground aggressive decks because they can stumble a lot.
I mean, from my experience, like, I've played against Grixis probably 4 or 5 times with Mono Red, and my win percentage against them is bad. And I think it's mostly due to just how they're constructed. Like, they generally play Moment of Craving as their 2-drop removal spell, which is a kick in the teeth. And then they also just have a bunch of answers to Chandra Fire Artisan, which everyone kind of moved to already because of Mortify hitting Experimental Frenzy. And it's gotten to the point on Arena where I'm actually just not sure if I should be playing Experimental Frenzy over Chandra right now just because of the Grixis deck and how popular it is. So...
yeah, maybe I think the Grixis deck is good against other mid-range decks. So if people move to the Bant deck, Grixis might be, the next step.
Oh, no, I clown them with this deck. It's not even close.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I don't know what you're doing playing Grixis. Grixis sounds horrible to me then.
This deck's great. This deck is just great.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, we are going to move on here. We got 2 more matches to get to and a lot of really interesting decks. What do we have next on the docket, Rob?
So we're going to be playing Austin Collins' Dimir mid-range deck. You're going to be on that side of things.
Nice.
And we're just pitting it against Mono Reds. We got Will Pulliam's list up again. This is a matchup that I wanted to see because I think the Dimir deck doesn't have a great clock, which makes it really vulnerable to just the burn aspect of Mono Red. But it does have powerful cards in the matchup. Enter the God Eternal is in the main deck is a 3 or 4 of. Even
strong. God Eternal Kefnet is just a 4 or 5 body, and it takes 2 removal spells to kill it, or a block plus removal spell, and it doesn't deal with it permanently. Like, as a Mono Red player, I've played against this Dimir deck once on Magic Arena. It was tough. So, well, I'm curious to see how that goes. But we'll get more to that after this short break. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for more Versus Live.